We talk about discernment and how that's a key skill in decentralized media compared to broadcast media.
Oh, absolutely. So now the conversation, which I think is really nice, is turning to now what and how. So the answer now what is decentralized collective intelligence. Great. How? How do we do that? So I said first step is know that you don't know. Okay? Know that most of your habits are blue church habits. In fact, most of your habits are even game A habits, but let's just leave it at blue church right now. And certainly everything you've been formally taught and everything you've learned from formal institutions, and almost all those are going to be wrong. So you have to actually step into a pretty child's mind place. And as a rule of thumb, just go very slowly and don't try to come to action very quickly. And step by step. You have to learn, you have to stand before you walk. You have to walk before you run. And this is very much developmental. So within that context, what are some of the core capacities that are part of our developmental stage for us to actually be able to move this decentralized collective intelligence forward? And one of the core capacities is discernment. And I will distinguish discernment from, say, judgment or good opinion. So, and here I'd like to actually invoke the distinction between thinking and simulated thinking. So let me just do that distinction really quickly and then come back to discernment. So if you remember that a lot of a way of thinking about the fundamental structure of game A, and in this case specifically the structure of the blue church, is computational in nature. There's a schema of information which is simply true, and your job is to simply learn it as a schema, like know the map, and to be able to repeat it back with fidelity, and if there are if-then statements, to be able to execute on identifying what is the if, what's the pattern that is present, and then execute on the then. So, if I say red, press the red button. Your job is to be able to know that I said red, and then to press the red button. That's a computational function, bureaucratic game A. And when I'm in that mode, there's a optimization for being able to do that, which is to be able to do so quickly and with fidelity. I want to become a really good computer. I want to be able to do pattern recognition against the patterns that are available very rapidly and never get it wrong. And then I want to be able to output the appropriate output very rapidly and with high fidelity. I don't know if you ever played the game where you did math challenges where a kid would stand up, the kid next to them would stand up, the teacher would show like 4 times 4, and whoever said the answer right got to move. I think it's called Around the World. That is this, precisely. Right? Your job is to know your math tables down pat, to be able to see 4 by 4 before the other kid has even figured out what the board says, you're saying 8. That is a simulated intelligence optimization function. And then this other side, thinking, from simulated thinking to thinking is a very different gig. Thinking is, well, it's so different I have to actually slow down to even begin to articulate it. For example, when you absolutely have no idea what's going on, thinking is helpful. In fact, it's necessary. It's what you do. You have to be able to perceive a lot. I perceive subtly and multimodally. You'd like to be able to use your eyes and ears and anything else you happen to have as much as possible. And you want it to be very available to novelty, which means that you don't want to close what you're perceiving on something that you think it is. You don't want to impose a structure from your framework on what is real. So if you're walking through the woods and you hear something in the bushes, if you imagine it's a horrible monster and you panic, you're engaging in simulated thinking. If instead you stop walking and you listen and look, and you don't have any preconceived notion of what it is, you know exactly what you know, which is that I heard something, and no more. And you tune yourself to just become increasingly capable of perceiving reality as fully as possible, And then as that reality reveals itself in clarity, making use of that and nothing more. I have just seen a flash of orange. I haven't seen a tiger. I just jumped to a conclusion there. I imposed sense making on reality. I just saw a flash of orange. Okay. What else? Oh, it's up there. Oh, I also heard chirping. Oh, it's a toucan, right? You slow down and allow the perception to really settle in, and you allow your mind to even be quite open and fluid. You're in a flow state, right, to use that language. The closer you are to a flow state, and the more you are able to engage in insight, which is to say not be in the box, but actually be perceiving reality with a lot of fluidity to it. That's real thinking. Okay? And so discernment is the use of sensing in a very subtle way, like nuance and subtlety, and a broad net of sense, particularly with your whole instrument. Noticing, for example, that you actually do have a lot going on. You're not just eyes and ears. You're several billion years of biological evolution that had to fucking survive in the wilderness using whatever it had and didn't throw out the good stuff.